But I think this next scene really shows Will's journey. In it, Carlton confronts Will when he finds a joint in his room. Will was asked to react defensively, and he made a very strong choice.
Well, I found this joint in your room. Drugs aren't the answer. If you have a problem, I'm here to help you, okay?
Welcome to Earth.
Yeah, you know, that line didn't make sense in that scene so much, but we used it later in the movie Independence Day, and that made $800 million. Woo! That's a lot of money, ain't it?
Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Independence Day.
Hello, and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by, I guess, the Goldblum to my Smith in this particular situation.
Am I Goldblum?
I'd be the Harry Connick Jr. or you're Will Smith. I'm a bit goofy.
But that means that you don't make it not even to half the movie, I think.
Oh, dude, you think in this situation, you would definitely make it further than I did in a situation like this.
How about I am the what's his name to your Goldblum? It's the guy from Taxi.
Judd Hirsch?
Yeah, I'm the Judd Hirsch to your Goldblum.
You're my dad?
I'm older.
I guess, yeah.
And I give you wisdom. I share my wisdom in times of crisis.
Or just the James Reborn to my Bill Pullman, just to keep it grounded and realistic.
It just inspire you to commit genocide. Yeah, I can do that.
Robert Loggia, how about that?
There we go. Okay, I think now we're talking.
Now we're on
older.
Something.
I am calmer, and in the end, we both make it to the end.
Yes, it's true. We are here today to celebrate not just an American holiday, but the day where the human race stood as one and said, "We will not go quiet into the night." One of the more famous monologues in a film of the 90s, and a movie that racked up its fair share of MTV Movie Award nominations. As Julio, that is the reason we are here this summer, is it not?
That it is. I was honestly surprised, Alex, when we first came up with this idea. I assumed that Independence Day would have swept at the 1997 MTV Movie Awards. It did as far as nominations, but it only has one win, which is surprising because maybe it's just one of those things that, you're looking at it with rose-tinted glasses. Hindsight is 20/20, all that, right? All these years later, because we know its cultural impact, it just doesn't compute that it wouldn't have won every award because it's I feel like it's in the spirit of the MTV Movie Awards to reward every single thing that this movie does. But no, they stopped at Kiss, which is good. I mean, I guess if it was going to win one, that's a pretty good one to win. But I am surprised that it didn't just get Best Movie, Best Actor, Hottest Actor, Breakthrough Performance for Boomer, the dog, just everybody.
I mean, and as we'll talk about in the second half, there was a hell of a lot going on in 1996 from a film perspective. So
I don't care. Independence Day should have, you know what it is? It was Bill Pullman. Bill Pullman doesn't say awards. Bill Pullman just says Bill Pullman. He's just there. You were praising the speech here in the opening, and I was thinking, yes, but now imagine if it'd been a good actor delivering it. Now we'd be talking Oscars, not just MTV Movie Awards.
You have like fucking who's like a celebrated seasoned actor at this point in the game?
Like today or in
yeah,
1997?
Like who's someone today that like, you know, could conceivably win an Academy Award for this? How
about John Cusack? He's due for a comeback.
No, he had his chance at a Roland Emmerich movie. He doesn't get to do it again.
That's true.
All right, Julio. So 68% of Rotten Tomatoes based on 81 reviews. So a bit outside of the circle we typically confine ourselves to. But still, it's got a pretty tantalizing looking red tomato. So we're going to treat this as fresh here in the first half and talk some guff about Independence Day, which I know critics and naysayers since have definitely had their fair share of topics to pick at. I mean, famously, Ethan Hawke turned down the Will Smith role in this because he thought the script was so bad. So,
what does he know? Have you looked at the movies he's made?
So it started before the movie was even made, the shit talk. So, you know, I think we'll be well equipped here in the first half, but come the second half, real talk, we'll dive into how we really feel. So, Julio, like I mentioned, barely, but still fresh. What quotes did you pull for us?
All right, some fresh quotes from the Rotten Tomatoes website. And Alex, I have to say, I was surprised on both ends here because I thought that this would be rotten. You know, back when we were doing our draft on the Patreon for the season, I was like, oh, Independence Day must be a rotten one. And no, 68% is fresh. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the popcorn meter, 75%, which is high. The popcorn bucket, it's standing, but I would have thought it would be higher. So at least according to Rotten Tomatoes, maybe this is yet another instance where you can point at this and go, this is why it doesn't work, right? I expected a Rotten Tomatometer score and a much higher popcorn meter score. Is it just me, or did you also have that idea? When you think of Independence Day, you're like, oh, that's a movie that critics hate and audiences love almost universally.
No, because I lived through a generation of people that, you know, said that movie sucked because the premise was questionable. You know, that's the story of Roland Emmerich's career, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, let's not get into Godzilla just yet, but yes, that is exactly the story of Roland Emmerich's career. All right. Let's start with the quotes. We're gonna go with Steve Crum from Crum Showbiz, who says the most spectacular and intriguing sci-fi action film since the Star Wars trilogy. So nothing between Star Wars and Independence Day. And I guess the reference is appropriate because this movie sort of steals the climax of Return of the Jedi. The whole business of turning the shields off, and maybe the shields are not off yet, but we're already starting the attack and all that. Did you get Return of the Jedi vibes?
Just off the top of my head, Alien and Aliens and Terminator 2 came out in between Star Wars and these movies, so I would like a moment for rebuttal to that review.
Steve Crum doesn't care for Cameron or Ridley Scott. He's all in on the Emmerich. Next, Lisa Schwartzbaum from Entertainment Weekly says it's the first futuristic disaster movie that's as cute as a button, which, when all the special effects blow over, is what we Americans like in a monster hit. Would you ever describe Independence Day as cute?
How dare that reviewer bring in the perspective of an American here, where the entire premise of the movie is we need to unite as one. That is such an American mindset to take away from it. It's like, yeah, America saved the day.
It's cute, though.
I really don't think they flew 90 billion light years to come down here and start a fight.
The little boy in this, Vivica A. Fox's son,
Dylan,
Ross Bagley, who was busy at this point in the 90s because he was also one of the stars of the Little Rascals movie. He's very cute in this, and so is the daughter of Bill Pullman. This kind of blew my mind. Do you know it was Mae Whitman?
I was about to ask you, is that Mae Whitman? I just remembered the hullabaloo when the long-delayed sequel, Independence Day Resurgence, came out, and people were up in arms that Mae Whitman was not in it. They cast somebody else to be the grown-up daughter of Bill Pullman.
Wah.
Yeah, I wonder how Mae Whitman feels about it. Maybe she'll write the script. She's like, fuck this. Do it without me.
I'm good.
All right, well, there is some cuteness, but still, I wouldn't describe the movie as cute. Like,
No.
Randy Quaid, not cute. Oh, inspiring, but not cute.
Definitely not cute. It's not a Randy Quaid word.
Next, Steve Biodrowski from E-Splatter says, basically, this is almost perfect realization of the movie you eagerly anticipated when, as a kid, you saw some poster or coming attractions trailer for a 1950s-style alien invasion movie. Alex, I'm old. I'm certainly older than you, but I am not that old that I would tell you what it was like to look at a poster that made me think of the 1950s. Can you relate to this?
No, that's a weird one. That seems like that's like a Brandon Curtis line of it's just like this. Everyone thinks that, and it's like, no, that's only something like Brandon likes to say things that only he would ever say, the only person in the world. So I feel like that's kind of in that category. I remember like when I saw the poster, the VHS box. Do you remember the VHS box had the lenticular cover of the White House exploding?
No. I remember the movie poster.
Yeah, that was enough for me to just be like, what? Like it's when you're, 10 years old or however it was at the time, that's enough for your imagination to run rampant. Now, when I see things that are like, oh, it's supposed to be like a movie from the 50s, it annoys me. So that's not really something I go in for.
Stranger Things, the 80s. That's what you really want to say.
Yeah, you can watch The Goonies.
Well, it's funny that you specifically said 10 years old because we're going to close with David Anson from Newsweek, who says, if I were a 10-year-old boy, I would probably think it was the coolest movie going.
Accurate. And then you become a smarmy teenager and you're too cool for school. And then you grow up and you rewatch this and you're like, yep, this is why we do it.
But then you're an adult and you have a podcast and you rewatch it again. And we're like, what is this? This movie definitely plays very differently as you get older, I think. And honestly, I don't know how I would have reacted to. I think so much would have gone over my head when I was 10.
Yeah, and there's also things just hilariously that we'll discuss given the state of, everything in the world right now.
Okay. I was wondering how long until one of us brought this up.
So there's two things about this that are funny, is that it's just from the perspective of an American. The fucking president of the United States, like, solely negotiates for the release of mankind to the alien that's using Data. What's the actor's name?
Brent Spiner.
Yeah, he's using him to communicate, and Bill Pullman's negotiating for all of humankind. And, the U.S. figures out how to topple them and sends out the communication. But then, this is an Emmerich staple, and this is like something we're going to circle back to, I would imagine, several times throughout this. Roland Emmerich loves making movies where people have to unite against an external force they're not prepared for.
I thought you were going to say Roland Emmerich loves America. But sure, that too.
Well, he did make The Patriot. Yeah, Independence Day, Godzilla, Day After Tomorrow, 2012, White House Down. Even like 10,000 BC is people uniting and trying to figure out, how to work together. And so I found like odd charm in that with how fucked up everything is right now. And I think, Julio, we've seen definitively that if this happened,
we would not unite.
We would be eradicated from the universe.
And honestly, rightfully so.
Yes, in less than 3 days, mind you. This would take like 2 days because, red hats would go out in the street firing their guns into the air. When they say that in the movie, I remember laughing at that as a kid. And now it's like, no, that's what would happen. Like people would just barge out in the street with their rifles and shoot them wildly into the air. There's no way, we do not have a Pullman-like leader in this reality, this real timeline that we're living. So I think it's as silly as it is and as much fun as we're about to have with it. It's almost like a heartwarming idea now that aliens come to Earth and force people to unite together and, from all over the world. But good luck with that ever actually happening. Not to say that would have happened in 1996 either, but the idea... Right. And like the optimism that accompanies writing something like that, as silly as it may be in present times, like I said, is very endearing.
Well, I think the dissonance has grown in 2025. When you watch in 2025 versus watching it, like if I'd been an adult in 1996, I think that I would have thought this is funny. And when I watch in 2025, my thought is this is darkly funny because it's not just that, it would never happen, but it's also that it's just it's gone from fantasy to, I don't know, whatever is bigger than fantasy. It's just like an impossibility. Or like the idea that anybody, with our current administration, America as a whole can barely wipe its ass, and that it would be able to organize a global resistance. Just, like every time that the president did anything, I would just picture it's like, how would Trump handle it? Like what would he do? Would he just get on Truth Social and like post in all caps, "Aliens, stop"?
He would, it would probably be it's not real. The media is making it up, even if this giant craft is hovering over like the entirety of New York City. Fake.
Fake. Now we're working out a deal with the aliens.
They better not do anything. They have no idea what I'm capable of.
Yes. Anyway,
got that out of the way, so now it's time for a bit more levity.
I cannot promise that this will be the end of Trump-related jokes, but I will do my best, Alex. Let's go to Contrarians Corner.
All right.
Our official position is we have no official position.
What is going on here?
Come on, guys. Would I keep you out of the loop, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
July 2nd, 1996, an extraterrestrial mothership enters Earth's orbit outside the moon and deploys its flying saucers, each 15 miles in diameter, over the major cities worldwide. U.S. Marine Captain Stephen Hiller and his unit, the Black Knight Fighter Squadron, stationed out of MCAS El Toro, are called back from Independence Day leave. His girlfriend, Jasmine Dubrow, decides to flee the city with her son Dylan. Retired combat pilot Russell Cassie, now an alcoholic single father and crop duster, sees this as a vindication of the alien abduction he's been claiming for 10 years. All right, lot to break down here.
You haven't even mentioned Bill Pullman.
Oh, we'll get there. First of all, when they're entering Earth's atmosphere, the vibrations from the ship somehow erase, Neil Armstrong's footprints on the moon, which I guess is an ominous beginning to we're about to erase human history. And as potentially harrowing and kind of, cool of a shot as that is, I was immediately like, holy shit, because it cuts to this monitoring station back on Earth in the United States, and they're playing End of the World by REM. It's like second movie of the summer journey to feature this song.
We needed to have Chris Farley and David Spade at that station manning the computers. Just a little wink.
My third note on this, it goes, boot prints gone, REM again, so much happening. And obviously just based from that first paragraph I read, there's so much immediately happening in this movie, and there's so many faces coming at you. Maybe in 96 you'd have a little time because not everyone was so well known as they are now, but Julio, watching this in 2025, you have no time at any point in this movie to really gain your bearings, and you start to lose track of what's going on really quick.
Yes, I don't know if it was the best idea to make this an ensemble piece. And it definitely ages even worse because, like you said, even the minor characters are now people that are distracting because, we know them. What's his name? The Department of Defense guy. This is his second appearance also in the Summer of the Bangers because he was in My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, you talking about the guy I mentioned earlier, James Rebhorn, whatever.
Yeah, James Rebhorn.
Yeah.
He was, I think that in 96, you probably didn't even blink. You're like, oh, it's that guy, but today, we're like, hey, it's that guy. He really stands out.
Before I forget, do you catch when Jeff Goldblum's like, checkmate? And, oh my God, the famous like trailer moment from Harvey Fierstein when he's like, I got to call my brother. I got to call my lawyer. And did you notice there's clearly dubbed line from after production wrapped where he's just like, forget my lawyer, which it clearly is him saying, fuck my lawyer. But,
I didn't notice.
20th Century Fox needed that PG-13, baby. And oh boy, we'll talk about how that worked out in their favor.
I did not notice. I assume every time somebody says forget whatever, I know that it's supposed to be fuck. And so maybe I'm just desensitized to it. Jeff Goldblum, Alex, this is a weird decade for him. I mean, it's like his renaissance, right? Like,
dude, he's like the hot guy in this movie.
But not hot in the way that he was hot in
The Fly?
Well, that too. No, but see, that was like, so in the 80s, he was Brendan, whatever, from The Fly. Brindle?
Mm-hmm.
And he was hot in that 80s way. And then he kind of disappeared. And then he came back with Jurassic Park, I want to say 93, right? And he was a hot scientist there. And here, he's supposed to be playing the nerdy guy, but he's still hot. I think that he just can't turn it off. He turned it on for Jurassic Park for Spielberg. And then it was just, well, this is what's going to be for the rest of the 90s.
He's perennially sweaty in this.
Yeah, but he's also very, the Goldblum mannerisms. He just
dude. Yeah,
turned them up because he's like, I can't help how hot I am, but I need to be nerdy. So let's just crank it up with the ums and the stuttering and the awkward pauses. I'm just going to do this so much.
He has a definitive Goldblum moment towards the end of the third act that I'll circle back to when we get there.
I wonder if it's the same one that I have singled out. Although there's many all throughout. My note just says that he is playing somebody that today, that kind of person, the asshole that rides his bike all the way into the office and then starts complaining about how you didn't put the recycling in the first, in the correct bin. And it was like, I agree with you, but also you're really annoying.
I'm not a douchebag. Yeah.
Yeah. Back in the 90s, I guess that was kind of quirky. Today it's just grating. So not a good start for the Jeff Goldblum character here. I completely understand why Buddy Hunt's sister left him.
Hey, do you have any idea how long it takes for those cups to decompose?
If you don't move soon, I'm going to start to decompose.
And to be fair, he gets a run for his money in the hot guy department because this is young Will Smith, in his probably mid to late 20s here. And he was, for better or for worse, this is the movie that made Will Smith a global superstar.
This is a movie that launched him into the stratosphere and eventually led to him saying, you know what? I want to destroy all this. I miss the days pre-Independence Day.
Just his brain, it settled in over the White House. It was just like, time's up.
He is young and hot in this, though. And I think that it's just pretty telling that he's the only person in the movie that doesn't notice there's an alien invasion taking place. Like him and Vivica Fox, that is such like hot people behavior. They slip in, they wake up, they make jokes, and it's like the world is in chaos and he doesn't even notice because he's just too cool for that. Same with Vivica Fox. Were you surprised to realize that this is a return from Vivica Fox to the Contrarians? Or did you remember that she was Vernita Green in Kill Bill?
No, I remember that because I talked about in that, and I know I've talked about in a litany of episodes in the decade of Contrarians that Vivica A. Fox in Independence Day is atop the list of the hottest anyone has ever looked in a movie. So for all the ridiculousness and ludicrous plot that's surrounding us, I was just like, God damn.
I would steal a helicopter for her.
I'd lift my hand into the rotating blade of it and just be like, all right, we're good.
She doesn't really get much to do in this movie. And I mean, you could say that she doesn't get much to do in the Tarantino movie either, but at least she gets a kick-ass fight in that one. Here,
she exists to be a single mother.
Yeah, she's waiting for Will Smith to propose. That's her story in this one.
But you are not as charming as you think you are, sir.
Yes, I am.
In New York City, technician David Levinson decodes a signal embedded within global satellite transmissions, realizing that it's an alien countdown for a coordinated attack. Aided by his ex-wife, White House Communications Director Constance Spano. This is Bonnie Hunt's sister, as you mentioned. That's
yes.
Margaret Collin?
Yes. There's several casting choices in this movie where they just went with the discount version of who they wanted.
Who do you think they wanted here? Susan Sarandon?
Bonnie Hunt, obviously. Bonnie Hunt doesn't do this type of movie, though. That's the problem. So I don't think it was a matter of affordability. I think it's just that they reached out and she said no. But how about my long lost cousin, Margaret? But we get discount Keanu Reeves another part of the story.
Also worth calling out that Margaret Collin, this is her return to the Contrarians as well, or excuse me, it's Contrarian adjacent projects, as she was also in Terminal Velocity.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I guess I didn't recognize her because I would have called out that was Jeff Goldblum's wife from Independence Day.
David, you could have done anything that you wanted. Research, development.
Oh, honey, I was happy where I was.
Haven't you ever wanted to be part of something special?
David and his father reached the Oval Office in Washington, D.C. to alert President Thomas Whitmore. This, of course, Bill Pullman, who, man, what a novelty it is to see the possibility of a young president, comparatively speaking.
A young president that can string two sentences together.
And is good looking and, charming.
He's awake the entire movie.
And he's a man of taste because he watches Letterman at night. He lets his daughter stay up to watch Letterman with him. Whitmore orders an evacuation of the targeted cities in the U.S., but it is too late. You bet your ass what that means is there's a line where Jeff Goldblum goes, "Time's up." Each saucer fires a beam, incinerating every target city, killing millions. Whitmore, the Levinsons, and a few others escape aboard Air Force One, while Jasmine, Dylan, and their dog Boomer take shelter in a tunnel's inspection alcove and escape the destruction of Los Angeles. One of many times in this movie, I'm going to just question the authenticity and plausibility. Just kind of ducking around a corner from a blaze that's incinerating cars and just people. I don't know. But you know me, Julio. I was very happy the dog made it.
I know, but were you utterly disappointed in Vivica Fox because she abandoned the dog? She grabs her kid and runs out of the car, doesn't even look back until she's safely hidden by, in that alley. And then she calls Boomer. Boomer was looking around like, where you go? And then he barely makes it because why couldn't she just grab him? Carry both of them.
I know. I was a bit disappointed in her as a dog owner there.
Yeah, she lost me. After that, I was like, I hope Will Smith doesn't propose.
Couple things to catch up on here. We meet the first lady who's like on a business assignment or some shit. Mary McDowell, who plays Marilyn Whitmore.
Yes.
And
say it, Alex. It's Donnie Darko's mom.
Yes. So anyway, the scene of her when she's on the phone and he's like telling her to come home. Her on the other end where she's at is at the Millennium Biltmore, the hotel I stayed at in Los Angeles, as I've been have a hinkling to do anytime I notice that in any movie we watch, I will call it out. That's it was shot right by, at least in 2023 when I was there, where the elevators are, and it looks kind of out onto the brunch area where you can sit and have a drink, and now that's where you go to get your Uber. She should have gotten an Uber and gotten the hell out of there.
Can you recreate the scene? Like, is there a phone that you can grab and Bill Pullman's on the other end?
Man, there's so many things now that I've seen in just rewatching movies that I'm like the Leo Come to Life, and like pointing at the screen. Remember last time I told you I watched Grandma's Boy? I was like, holy shit. Why did they film this movie at the Biltmore? But anyway.
Well, so you have the first lady, you have the president, you have Jeff Goldblum, you have his dad, who is, of course, the guy from Taxi, who's playing a quirky Jewish man because it's the guy from Taxi. Then you have Randy Quaid, because they couldn't get Dennis Quaid, so they get the discount version. And then the kid, his main kid, what's his name? Miguel, I think, in the movie, right?
Not Johnny Whitworth.
Well, I was gonna say not Keanu Reeves either, but he is the guy from he's Frank, the bunny from Donnie Darko. So this movie has 2 Donnie Darko cast members.
What's the director's name? The guy, Southland Tales, what's his name? Richard Kelly? Richard Kelly. Yeah. So he's watching this, and Mary McDonnell comes on the screen and one eyebrow goes up, and then not Johnny Whitworth, whatever his name is, he comes on the screen and, both eyebrows go up, and he has his little fucking notepad there, or he writes it on the back of the popcorn bag.
Must give them more screen time. In the case of Donnie Darko's mom, that ends up happening, but I think Frank gets about as much screen time in Donnie Darko as he does here in this movie.
Yeah, James Duvall is his name, And the two things I know him from, besides this movie, are Go and SLC Punk. As you know, I'm a pretty big SLC Punk fan, so his delivery in those movies doesn't have shit on him running into frame going, "Dad!" at the end of this movie. So,
Dad, what's he doing?
on July 3rd, Earth's military retaliations against the invaders are thwarted by the alien warship's force fields. Each saucer launches shielded fighters, devastating the human fighter squadrons and military bases, including Captain Hiller's. Hiller lures an enemy fighter into the Grand Canyon before ejecting from his plane, blinding the fighter using his parachute and causing the alien to crash in the Mojave Desert. He subdues the downed alien and flags down a convoy of refugees, transporting the alien to Area 51, where Whitmore's plane has landed. No mention here at all of Harry Connick Jr.
I was going to say, one of the biggest casualties of the first half of this movie.
My notes about Harry Connick Jr. This guy surely won't die. He died.
My note says he's coming back. He's come back to the Contrarians. We had him on Basic. I think he lasted longer in that one. But here he is the quirky sidekick. If he didn't have so much competition from pretty much every other character in the movie, I would say he could maybe sneak his way into an Embry nomination by October, but that's not going to happen, man. He even sings a few of his lines, but there's another actor in this movie that I think might have a better shot at maybe getting a nomination. But Harry Connick Jr., he doesn't do enough, even though there's a moment where it looks like he's proposing to Will Smith. How much did audiences in the 90s laugh at this? Like, hey, it's a dude in one knee with a ring in front of another dude.
I do have a note of classic 90s homophobia here. But yeah, he's the guy, the young kid in the Vietnam movie who's too excited to be there. He's like singing as they're going to their fucking fighter jets.
Yep.
And obviously I've seen this movie many, many times before, but it's even more apparent here. He doesn't even like do anything cool. Like there's a few, like especially one of the characters in this gets a really awesome, like rebellious hell yeah death. This dude just doesn't know what he's dealing with.
No, he fucks up. Will Smith tells him, don't do this. Then he does it. He's there just to make Will Smith look better, I guess. Another casualty, by the way, and we have to mention him because, got to pay our respects. Harvey Fierstein doesn't make it past the attack. Boomer survives and Fierstein doesn't. And I guess if I had to choose one or the other, I would choose Boomer. But still, can you imagine how much better this movie would be if Fierstein made it all the way to Area 51?
Okay, roll with me here. I do love Judd Hirsch, and he's quite funny in this movie. But Judd Hirsch doesn't make it, and instead Harvey Fierstein's at the right-hand side of Jeff Goldblum throughout the rest of the movie.
He's the one that comes up with the cold idea that inspires him with the virus and all that stuff.
How dare you yell at David? You all'd be dead if it wasn't for my David.
God, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Fierstein's still there. It would be more out of the box than the movie currently is because you don't expect Harvey Fierstein to play a big role. You just expect him to be funny. So yeah, if you make him a pivotal part of the story, then I'm down. And it kind of sucks because his death is just like, he doesn't even get to say, oh shit. He says, oh crap. Like, come on. You could still be PG-13 if you kept that as an oh shit, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well then, come on.
We had to, I don't know though. Then we might have to give up the shot of Vivica A. Fox in lingerie. So I don't know. As a lecherous man, I don't know which one I'd rather take.
So this is the moment, Alex. The moment is this the moment when Will Smith becomes Will Smith? When he
absolutely
punches an alien and everybody is like the Simpsons thing, like, say the line, Will. And he does it. He does two things, which is, I guess, something that Emmerich does, I guess, in his movies, or at least in this one, where he just can't stop at one-liner, so he has to have a follow-up. It happens several times, but this one is one of the worst offenders because he has Welcome to Earth, but then he has to add, that's what I call a close encounter. Like, choose one or the other, right?
Yeah, for those of y'all who have never seen this movie, it sounds made up, but what happens is the first shot we see of the invading aliens here is one of them kind of like jump scaring out of their aircraft. And then Will Smith punches it in the face, and what I guess is its face, and knocks it out, and then says, welcome to Earth, and lights up a cigar. And then, of course, says, now that's what, with the cigar in his mouth, so he's like chomped down with his teeth. And that's why I call it a close encounter.
I think that maybe audiences were easier to please back in the 90s. That's all it took to make you a superstar.
That's what I call a close encounter.
U.S. Defense Secretary Albert Nimzicki reveals that the government faction has been involved in a UFO conspiracy since 1947, when one of the invaders' fighters crashed near Roswell, New Mexico. So, of course, playing off of the long-standing conspiracies about Area 51. This is James Rebhorn, who we're talking about here, the Defense Secretary. Area 51 houses the refurbished ship and 3 alien corpses from the crash. Dr. Brackish Oaken, the chief scientist, examines the alien captured by Steven, which awakens, telepathically invades Oaken's mind, and psychically attacks Whitmore before being killed by Secret Service agents and military personnel. Whitmore learns the invaders' plans from the psychic attack. They annihilate Earth's inhabitants and harvest its natural resources as they've done to other civilizations. So, this Area 51 thing here, a lot of fun. It becomes clear that we spent a pretty good amount of the budget here in some of the opening action sequences. So we're just going to chill on this soundstage for a little bit in Area 51 and, use a very wet, rubbery alien for Data from Star Trek to operate on. So you are a bigger Star Trek fan than I am, and this would have gone so far over my head as a kid, Julio. But this has to be the joke, right? That Data from Star Trek is like the real nerdy scientist here that gets really excited about space and aliens.
I guess so. I guess. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, definitely Brent Spiner. He's always going to be Data. At this point, it's how do you escape it, right? Like he did it for so many years. It's easily the highest profile role he ever took. And when you see Brent Spiner, I guess there may be some people that think, hey, it's a scientist from Independence Day. For the most part, everybody's going to be like, it's Data, right? And I think in the mid-90s, he still had a delusion maybe of, oh, I can break out of it. All I have to do is play a character broad enough that that's going to get me out of this Star Trek bullshit. Didn't quite happen. But yeah, you see it at least, I don't remember 96 if I was like, hey, that's Data. But definitely now I'm like, oh, that's Data. That's Brent Spiner's trying too hard. My main thought today is just like, what a waste of a cameo. You could have put Tom DeLonge there and then you're cooking, right? Like that's a reference that lives forever. You get the guy from Blink-182 that believes in aliens, just I will laugh forever.
Dude, that's good. You caught me off guard by that. I was like, wait, is he talking about Tom? And yeah, that's fantastic.
Can you picture it, Alex? I mean, was he already doing his thing in 1996?
No. Dude Ranch hadn't even come out yet. And yeah, they were years away from commercial success. So now what I'm realizing, and I've never seen Resurgence or whatever the sequel was called, but now what I'm learning is massive missed opportunity not having Tom show up in that. That would be great.
Well, especially because this is not a spoiler because that movie sucks, and but they retconned 2 things, or rather, like this scene that we're talking about in the lab in Area 51. They use it to establish 2 things in Resurgence. One is that Data doesn't die. Brent Spiner actually shows up, which is hilarious because he's dead at the end of the Adam Baldwin even like checks his pulse, right?
Yeah,
he's dead at the end of the scene, but yet somehow
is his neck all fucked up? Does he have like a big scar on his neck?
No, but he's in a coma and he wakes up in the movie. Like something happens and he comes out of his coma. It's so fucking stupid. And then the other thing is that when the movie starts, and I don't know if you've seen the pictures of Bill Pullman in Resurgence, but he obviously he does not look the way he does here because it's like 20 years later, however long, but also he has the beard and he looks haunted. And what they say in the movie is that it's because of this psychic attack that he suffers here. That basically the alien fucked up his head and he's been living with that for however many years since this movie. And so that's one of the things that drives Resurgence, and it's a really bad movie. But when I was watching it today, when I was watching this, because I'd forgotten that was established here. So I saw it happen and I was like, oh, wow, this leads to a very bad movie several years down the line. So Independence Day just can't win. The other thing I was going to say, Alex, is that the Area 51 thing, it doesn't hit anywhere near as hard now that we've actually had people go into Area 51 and kind of expose that it's a bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
Now it just seems like, oh, yet another thing, another big disappointment from the American government.
And this scene concludes with the 2025 beginning of this story. This is how Trump would start the alien invasion, in which Bill Pullman goes, "Nuke 'em.
We gotta nuke him. We gotta nuke him now." You've seen Mars Attacks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that it hurts this movie. Once you've seen Mars Attacks, which Mars Attacks knows it's ludicrous. You know, it doesn't make any bones about it being silly in a comedy. But it's the exact same plot as Independence Day. Are we gonna nuke the aliens? Yeah, finally, it's Rod Steiger, I think, the one that has that line. I don't know if he's the Secretary of Defense, but you know, he's the guy that's advocating for using nuclear weapons, and he keeps yelling at Jack Nicholson, and he goes, "Sir, we gotta nuke him. We gotta nuke him now." That's all I could think of here. Also, man, I can't believe I even made a note. Did you catch Leland Urser assisting Brent Spiner when they're doing the autopsy?
No.
Dude, my note says, is that ... Leland Urser? You see him without the mask for like 2 seconds, and then he puts the mask on because, you know, they're operating on the alien. But it's unmistakable. I mean, and he is listed. Like, if you look on the IMDb cast list, he is there, like all the way down the line, but he is there. So it is him.
Contrarian staple, Leland Orser.
Yeah. He's not, the reason you didn't catch him is because he doesn't have a Leland Urser freak out. So imagine that. You cast Leland Urser in your movie and you don't give him anything to freak out about. I mean, eventually he gets killed by the alien when the alien wakes up. But, you know, if you know how to use Leland Urser, you give him a close up and you give him a big scene where he hyperventilates and everything. But no, here it's just like, if you know it, it's there. But otherwise, it's not really remarked on. And that's a waste of Leland Urser.
Nuke 'em. Let's nuke the bastards.
So yeah, Whitmore reluctantly, it doesn't sound reluctant, but he finally authorizes a trial nuclear attack against the saucer above Houston. Poor Houston, man. But the ship is unharmed due to its force field, while the city is destroyed by the blast. That's that Simpsons joke of when the meteor is heading towards Springfield and they have like multiple plans of defense, but all of them involve Moe's Tavern burning to the ground. That's just like the idea here. No matter what, we lose Houston. All subsequent nuclear attacks are aborted. Jasmine and Dylan commandeer a highway maintenance truck and rescue some survivors, including the critically injured First Lady, Marilyn Whitmore. Though Hiller rescues them and takes them back to Area 51, Marilyn succumbs to her injuries after reuniting with her family. And then so we just move on to July 4th from there. So Julio, we lose a pretty important character to the story of this, and we move on even quicker.
Before we tackle the one true tragedy in this movie, I have to say I could have used a shot, maybe 2 shots, of Ted Cruz boarding a flight to Cancun when Houston is getting bombed. It would have felt so relevant, but I guess, you know, there's only so much you can ask from Emmerich. Yeah, my note says this silly movie is not equipped to handle the death of the First Lady. That belongs in a different movie because the actors are good. Like even Pullman. I'm not hot on Pullman as an actor overall, but I feel like he's trying in this one, in this one scene. Right, it's a big deal. He finds his wife. His daughter is not aware that her mom is dying, and he has to navigate that, and then tries to be reassuring to his dying wife. She can see through his lies. I mean, it's an important scene that I think it's played well, but it's straight in the middle of a movie that is nothing like that. Right, there's nothing. All the other deaths we've seen in the movie have been kind of laughable. Definitely not painted as big tragedies that are supposed to stir our emotions. I felt like it kind of sucked the fun out of it.
Yeah, it gets really serious really fast.
Yeah. But then, like you just said, then the next day it was like, well, fuck yeah, let's go to war. I feel like if you're going to hit me that hard with that scene that's so real, that handles death in a way that's more realistic than you've been doing it before, then you need to ease me out of it. You can't just give me a black screen that says July 4th and then we go on to like a fantastic third act, right? You need to give me more time to process this death.
On July 4th, inspired by Julius, David plans to write a computer virus on his laptop and upload it into the mothership's operating systems to disable their alien shield. Hiller volunteers to pilot the alien ship armed with a tactical nuclear weapon to destroy the mothership. The U.S. military contacts the remaining forces and airborne squadrons through Morse code to organize a united counterattack. Lacking pilots, Whitmore and General William Gray enlist volunteers with flight experience, including Russell Casey.
Hey, Randy Quaid made it back to the movie.
He did. He was drunk, and his son helped him sobered up with some strong coffee. This is from the refugee camp at Area 51 to fly the remaining jets. Before they go, Hiller marries Jasmine with David and Constance present, during which the divorced pair reconciles before Hiller and David leave on their mission.
Here's a serious question. Do you think Jeff Goldblum was right and Connie was cheating on him with Bill Pullman?
I mean, if she was, could you blame her?
Yeah, I was going to say, fair play. He shouldn't have let her go. He should have gone with her, right? But instead, he walked away. So he only has himself to blame, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't like super invested in this love story. I could see that they were trying to get me to care. But I was like, she was doing fine without him. You know what I mean? Like, the movie never convinced me that there was anything. Yes, he ends up saving the world, but that's good for all of us. That's not good specifically for Connie. Connie, she's an attractive young woman with a high-ranking job, working side by side with the most powerful man, not just in America, but in the world, according to this movie. So Jeff Goldblum has to try a little harder, I think.
And try he does. And try does the screenwriter of this film, Dean Devlin, and also Roland Emmerich. I just want to clarify what's going on here. So apparently this alien spacecraft and all of their technology also runs on like Windows 95. And so Jeff Goldblum can figure out how to code a virus for their technology.
I mean, why not? I think he explains it perfectly, Alex.
This is the Jeff Goldblum show, by the way, when he's explaining all of it. And he has like the fucking map. And he's like, and then we fly the ship into the, we dock with the mothership. And then, he does all this. And this has always been the thing about the movie that like I, at a young age, was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. How would we understand how their technology works?
Because he's a genius, Alex, and he recycles.
Haven't you seen District 9, homie? That's the whole thing. We take the whole species captive to try to figure out how their shit works. We still can't figure it out. And here Jeff Goldblum just does like 3 pages of coding and he's like, got it. All right. So I'm going to log into WordPress and then send him this fucking file and then we'll be good to go. He also endangers the lives of everyone there when he asks them to fire at the ship when the shield's up, and this arid bullet could have killed any one of them in the room. Could have gone fucking first class on him and flown into someone's back and paralyzed them for the rest of their lives.
Robert Loggia, I can't feel my legs.
I can't feel my legs. Mr. President, go on without me.
He tries to wallpaper it with just the idea that, well, they use our signal so we can use theirs. And that's supposed to explain the whole thing, which I understand. We've come this far. If I'm going to give him credit for anything, is that the movie doesn't add an extra 15 minutes to its runtime by trying to give me a plausible explanation of how they could do this, right? Like at that point, it's been almost 2 hours. And I'm like, sure, whatever you say. Just, I'll take it. You say that we can hack their signal the way that they hacked ours. Right. Sounds good enough. And then they do that while having Goldblum be at his most Goldblum, like you said. So that is supposed to also distract you. It's like, isn't he charming? Isn't he hot? Sure. I'll take whatever he's selling.
That could buy it, I think, at least some time to take him out, take him down, do your stuff.
So what this paragraph leaves out here as we move to the conclusion of our film is that Bill Pullman delivers one of the most insane speeches in the history of, dare I say, cinema, not just American cinema, where he speaks to the world. And Roland Emmerich was born in Germany, Julio. So it's very fascinating to see this insane sense of American patriotism and this ideal that if the world was going to shit, America would pick up the ball and run with it. So Bill Pullman addresses the world and declares that if they win, the 4th of July will become the Earth's holiday. And then he suits up and gets in a plane and flies off to kill aliens. The president.
I am trying to decide if Roland Emmerich is thoroughly disappointed in the state of affairs in America today, or if he is ecstatic. Because both options are plausible, just based on what he thinks the American president should be, right? Maybe he looks at Trump and he's like, "You're nothing like President Whitmore. Shame on you." Or he looks at Trump and you're like, "All right, so you're not quite Bill Pullman, but you are that crazy." So maybe. I don't know. I'll be interested to hear his take on current American politics. Alex, my favorite part of this whole thing, maybe my favorite part in the whole movie, is that we finally leave America briefly to see what's happening in other countries. And I think are they British? They certainly speak with British accents. But, the guys that go, "Oh, the Americans? Took them long enough. What's the plan?"
To be fair, they're ahead of us, on a global clock. They're, London's 6 hours ahead of Texas. So, sorry it took us a little bit longer for us to save your asses again.
I just love how the idea that everybody was just waiting for the Americans to save the day.
Dude, it's so fucking ridiculous. Yeah.
Like today, it feels like everybody's just waiting for America to fuck up. Like, okay, what else are they going to do now?
Well, they don't have to wait long. I was going to say, too, like the joke of like Trump getting, suiting up and flying to defend the country. He couldn't even fit in one of those ships, man. So, yeah, and we haven't called this out yet because this is just like through and through America rah-rah bullshit in a time where, not that to say it was like ever okay to, because, we've certainly never been perfect, but now I can't imagine any studio greenlighting a project that like a major studio that celebrates America as like the world leader and the people that come to save the day. It helps that this movie is so ridiculous, but it is also just like, really, the 4th of July is now going to be the global day of independence. Okay, don't give him the idea. That might be something he tried to set into motion. So.
Yes,
except for, of course, for Canada and Mexico.
I know we hate AI, Alex, but if we are eventually going to succumb to the AI overlords, I hope that the last thing we do with our last bit of free will is to recreate the Bill Pullman speech from Independence Day using all the American presidents that we've had in real life. So I want to see Bush Sr. delivering this speech. I want to see Clinton delivering it. I want to see Biden. I want to see Obama. Sadly, I would be morbidly curious to see what a Trump Independence Day speech is like. But you know what I mean? Like, you just get everybody.
Dude, yeah, Biden. Today is our Independence Day. That, and you get Reagan, Nixon. I'm trying to think of JFK or what does he say? Mankind. It's funny to be saying that here today. And then yeah, Nixon would be great too. We will not go quietly. And now I'm just doing fucking shtick over here, man. I'm doing like my fucking variety hour. And we got oh man, you teed me up too well on that one, but that's a very good idea.
All right, make it happen. Somebody that's already in the clutches of AI, because I just give you the idea for free.
Today we celebrate our Independence Day.
Entering the alien mothership, they upload the virus and launch the nuclear missile, destroying it and the alien invasion force before narrowly escaping. With the shields down, Whitmore's squadron engages a saucer targeting the Area 51 base. They exhaust their ammunition, and as the saucer readies to fire, Russell sacrifices himself by crashing into its primary weapon, destroying the warship. Gray orders notifications to resistance groups worldwide about the spaceship's critical weakness, leading to their destruction. Julio, we don't get it until here. Not even the third act. It's the fucking last 15 minutes of the movie. The chemistry between Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith makes you go, why hasn't this been going on the entire movie?
I love how in sync we are sometimes, Alex, because that's literally one of my notes. It was like, why did we wait so long for the Goldblum-Smith team up? I'm like, this is what the movie should have been from the beginning, right? First 15, 20 minutes, everything happens up to this point, and then the bulk of the movie is them traveling in that little spaceship, having adventures until they dock at the mothership and then save the planet. I don't need anybody else. This is my super Goldblum line, by the way. The oops thing.
Okay, oops. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he goes, what was that? Oops. And let's try that again. This is Will Smith. And then Goldblum goes,
Yes, without the oops.
who talks like that? Jeff Goldblum. That's the only person in the world that would say it that way. And it's just so, man, if I say inhuman, it just makes it sound like he's a monster. But you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't sound like a person.
Yeah, mine is right around that point in time where Will Smith reminds him, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And Goldblum goes, fat lady. And just that like really quick, but also like pregnant delivery that only Jeff Goldblum is capable of.
This is important.
Fat lady. I gotcha.
But then they basically break Earth's atmosphere and then the mothership appears. Julio, space is expanding infiniteness. And they just randomly come across it like it's a fucking 7-Eleven. They're like, oh, there it is. All right, here we go.
They turn their blinker on. They just slowly merge the lane that goes into the spaceship. I think, we had that quote that called the movie cute. And maybe what the reviewer was talking about was the fact that Jeff Goldblum, in the middle of this urgent crisis, took the time to design like little crossbones to go with his virus. So that when they deliver it, it's not just like, oh, they're delivering a virus, but they're delivering graphics.
Sends him his avatar.
Yes. Yeah. So Randy Quaid, Alex, I have one final thought about Will Smith and Goldblum, but I want to talk about Randy Quaid first, because this is, I think most people, even if you've only seen Independence Day once, this is one of the things you remember. And this is one of the memes, right? It's like Pullman's speech and then Quaid's sacrifice, which would probably hit harder if we'd actually had him do anything throughout the movie. But instead, he was introduced as a drunk at the very beginning, and then he shows up at the very end. So not that powerful. But then it's like the double one-liner strikes again, man. They can't help themselves, Emmerich and Devlin. Man, in this one, he has 3 moments, in fact. It's just the worst. Because first is, tell my kids I love them, right? A much better movie would have ended there.
What is he doing? Dad!
Right. But then he has to say, in the words of my generation, up yours. And then he flies. I was like, all right, he had to get a quip out. That's fine. Nope. We go back to him. And now it's going to be a close-up. He's like,
hello, boys. I'm back.
Yes. Come on. Don't you think that that's milking it a little too much?
Yes, but if I was about to sacrifice myself to save humanity, I'd get off as many one-liners as I could. I'd be flying into it going, you want to see a magic trick? I'm going to make this pencil disappear.
Oh, God. Listeners, please hit us with your one-liners that you would say as you're flying into it.
If you're going down to save humanity, what's like the line you get out? I'd probably actually, if I was doing that, it would be, it would probably be one of the lines they yell at each other in Almost Famous when they think they're about to die in the plane crash. It would be, knowing me, it'd be something niche, or it would be some Simpsons line. Like, that's how I would go out. But of course, I'd never be in this situation, because if aliens invaded, I wouldn't leave my home and I would die like a coward in my house.
Alex, to keep in theme with the summer of the MTV bangers, your one-liner would have to be a quote from Tommy Boy.
This is true. Oh, I just hit the it's go time. And then
there you go. This is the first time I've caught this. Do you think that Quaid fucked up? Like, it wasn't a random malfunction, but he actually fucked up his plane, because when he first gets on, he pushes the wrong button and he activates a missile. And then he's like, oh my God. And then he turns it off.
I caught that too. I was like, wait a minute. But then I was like, also remembering the movie I'm watching, I'm like, no, there's no way.
You're telling me they set something up?
Yeah, because that was just him like almost inadvertently firing a missile when they were grounded was for him to hit the line. I picked a hell of a day to stop drinking, which isn't true. We saw him drinking like 4 hours ago. But anyway.
Yeah, well, anyway, I was trying to give him credit, but you're right. In the context of the movie we're watching, that doesn't track. But yeah, that's the big moment for Quaid. And then the way that this movie, keep it exactly the same, but it becomes a much better movie if, one, he doesn't do the quips I know you would have. I probably would have too. I would like to think that I would have. But as an audience member, so much more powerful if he ends with just tell my family I love them. Tell my kids I love them. He flies in, dies. And then, Alex, Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum don't make it back. They think that they're stuck in the mothership and they have to blow it up. So they just light their cigars. They still do their little shtick where they wave at the alien. They're like, hi, we're the Earthlings. And then they fire the bomb and they just look at the aliens in defiance as they blow up with the ship.
Go out Prometheus style? Idris Elba and his crew?
There you go. They raise their hands.
It's been a pleasure. Steve, you too.
Oh, one thing I wanted to touch on here before we wrap up Contrarians Corner. I keep making that joke about, Dad, what is he doing? That was something me and my buddy Shutdown in college would quote just randomly all the time. But again, watching this, taking notes, how did this fucking greasy teenager just sneak into the war room during an intergalactic battle? Like, it's all these high-ranking military officials, and he's just kind of watching from the corner.
I think that there's a 3-hour cut that explains...
Black and white. I think stakes were so high that, they left the screen door open to the war room.
Well, no, because as you may recall, it's really funny because once we get to the battle, this is a problem with having such a big cast, right? The movie feels like they need to give everybody something to do. And that's not really the way it should work, because really only a couple of characters have important stuff to do in this climax, right? Like Randy Quaid has to redeem himself. They contrived so that the president is like in a plane too, part of the fight. And then, they send Goldblum and Smith in the alien mission. That's all that matters. Everybody else that we've been introduced to, sadly, they should have just sat the third act out. But instead, they have to give him stuff to do, right? Because it's an ensemble movie. And so you have the subplot of Connie, Bonnie Hunt's long-lost sister. She comes up to Adam Baldwin and is like, hey, we are protected, but what about the people outside? And Adam Baldwin suddenly remembers that there's innocent people that are not protected. And the aliens are like 20 minutes away. So you keep cutting back to Connie and Adam Baldwin and other people just running into the mountain where where they'll be protected, and there's stuff that's exploding, and Judd Hirsch is praying with everybody else. It's so in that chaos, I can totally see how young, not Keanu Reeves, just kind of wanders into the attack room. It's like, I didn't know. Everybody's running around, and this place seemed like it was cozy. I thought there was no organization there.
I was trying to find the Sbarro in here, man.
I heard my dad's voice.
Can you tell me where the vending machine is? You know where the weight room is?
And then he hears Quaid and goes, Dad! But then show you said he had been saying that every time Randy Quaid said something through the intercom.
What is he doing? As humanity celebrates its victory against the aliens, Hiller and David are rescued after surviving the crash, landing back on Earth, and reuniting with their families. And man, Goldblum is walking like such a bitch right here, man. I don't mean that in like a degrading, derogatory way. I mean, he's like owning this weird like strut he has where he's popping his hips and shit. He's such a bitch. It's awesome.
He has a cigar.
And then Will Smith realizes, I have the hottest wife on the planet.
Yeah, Goldblum he lets his ex run to him, which is, I mean, come on, man.
And in the closing moments of this film, I do have to give credit to Jeff Goldblum. Saved the fucking planet. He figured it out, and he literally saved the world, and he saved the human race. And all Bill Pullman can muster up to say is good job, just because they still have that bitterness lingering. You have your bro that you had a fight with and you've made up, but there's still some of that resentment there. So you can't ever like fully commit to him. And so I love that. And also Roland Emmerich and what's his name? Devlin, the screenwriter here. The last line of the movie is Will Smith tells his son, I told you we'd see some fireworks because it's the 4th of July. I just imagine, it's 6:30 a.m., maybe like 5:30. The sun's peering through the curtains, and they like wrote that line together, and then they both just sat in silence, staring at each other for 3 hours. They're like, it's perfect.
At what point in the process did they decide that they needed to, back to Return of the Jedi? I guess it's the remaster versions where they added the shots of different planets celebrating the fall of the Empire. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
You see different planets, and here you see different countries, and it's the most stereotypical shots. You could of course, you're gonna see the pyramids when they go to Egypt.
Jesus, yeah.
They could have done a decent franchise if they've managed to spun the success of this version of Independence Day. Like, they do the next one, and it takes place in like India or England or I don't know, fucking Iceland. But you know what I mean? Like, retroactively, it would give me more respect for this movie, because then you realize that this was just the American chapter, but at the same time there were like much more interesting stories happening around the world.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, all they could muster was a really, really, really bad sequel way down the line. It's just, if it wasn't the 90s, Alex, this would be propaganda, right? You would say this is propaganda.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If this came out today, this would be like a faith-based movie directed by what's his name? Kirk Cameron?
Yes. Kevin Sorbo. Yeah. Kevin Sorbo would play the president.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Gina Carano would play the Vivica A. Fox role.
She's an MMA fighter, though. She's not an exotic dancer here. But she still has the same line with the First Lady. Where she's like, what do you do? I fight. Oh. Box? No, MMA. I'm sorry.
Let me explain it to you. Back in 1993, there was this guy named Hoist Gracie. Oh, Jesus. But yes, yeah, absolutely. This, knowing it came out in the 90s is the only reason it doesn't feel like propaganda. I'm like, God, this is so dumb, and takes me back to a much simpler time. But that was Independence Day. Thanks to the United States, the world is saved. Specifically, thanks to Jeff Goldblum. I'm excited to move along to Real Talk, Julio. Lose some credibility with my fellow film connoisseurs for how much I fucking love this movie. So I'm ready to move along if you are.
I want to point out, I was quickly scanning through my notes to see if I had missed anything. The last thing that happens in the movie, the last big plot movement, is that after Randy Quaid blows up the big mothership with Sacrifice, I think it's Robert Loggia that says, okay, everybody, let everybody know around the world how you beat them. We figure out that, how you do it. And I could just imagine everybody around the world going, okay, send your Randy Quaids.
All right, who's the local drunk idiot? We got to shoot him up the tailpipe there.
Yep, exactly. Anyway, let's go to Real Talk, Alex.